come camping with me as a mom with HS. So my husband and I packed up the car with everything we're going to need, food, tent, all that stuff. This is my 3-year-old dog, Lulu, my 2-year-old daughter, Luxley, and my husband, Trevor. So we have a 2.5-hour drive to go. Thankfully, Luxley slept for the majority of it. And my husband and I just caught up and chatted and talked mainly about the excitement that we have about moving to a new house soon. I had some caffeine and then we finally made it. Used the map to locate where our spot was. Luxley's excited. And here's where we'll be camping. Now, I've never camped in a tent before. My husband says that this is real camping, and I've only pretty much played going to a cottage. So that's my husband using a hockey stick to clean up all the pine cones on the ground. Very Canadian. And now we are going to set up the tent. I would describe camping as playing chores in a forest. It is a lot of work to camp, and I did not realize that. I still had a lot of fun, but I was surprised that it wasn't as relaxing as I thought it was going to be. But I also think it's because I was so inexperienced that hopefully as time goes on, I'll get better at camping. Plus, taking care of HS while camping wasn't the easiest, but I'll get into that as we move forward. So we're putting the tent stakes in so the tent doesn't blow away. And that was a very good idea along with this rain tarp because it ended up being pretty rainy. Now, this is me getting pine needles off of my feet. These pine trees that you see us in just drip sticky pine tar on everything. And I'm not going to lie, I got really annoyed just being sticky this whole weekend. Not to be a princess, but I didn't love that aspect of camping. So we're finishing putting up the tent. And then you're going to be seeing us get the inside of the tent ready. This is the first rendition of how we decided to try and put our sleeping quarters. Unfortunately, the idea of us all sleeping on a queen mattress that you'll see here in a second did not work out, and my husband had to drive to Walmart the next day to get another air mattress because we all didn't end up fitting on this one here that you're going to see us blow up. We thought it would be fun and cuddly, and it was just hot and sweaty, and none of us slept. So my husband ended up finish pumping it up because I got really tired and just needed to go and have a rest. Luxley approved it. She thought it was super fun. So then we all took a little rest and hung out in the tent for a second before we had to get to the next round of things that we needed to set up. But we just enjoyed that we had gotten this far with our setup. Luxley decided to play in the tent while I went around and tried to get more ventilation by lifting up the window flaps because inside the tent was hot. It was a heat wave, rainy and sticky, and I was trying to make the tent as cool as possible, and this did help. At this point, we'd been there for about 4 hours, and I could tell that my HS was starting to act up a bit. One of the abscesses I had started to swell. It's right on top of my pubic bone. I could already feel that this weekend was going to cause a flare-up right around right now when I'm getting this bed made. I'm like, yep, I'm going to be in for it. But I decided to still make the best of the weekend, and I'm really glad I did and just chose to manage my HS through the adventure rather than not going on the adventure at all because it ended up being a lot of fun in the end. So I'm getting the bed set up here, and I brought some sheets so that we wouldn't get too hot at night. And now that I'm thinking about it, which is not going to be videoed in here, my husband had to get up in the middle of the night and go get the sleeping bags I brought because it ended up being so cold that night, at least to me. I always end up being that person that's cold. So this is me setting up the bed, but it did not end up working out. And my poor husband had to run out in the rain and get warmer blankets. Luxley was feeling tired still, so we both just laid down and chilled out for a moment while my husband was still unpacking the car. I ended up helping Luxley get her shoes on here, and we put up a little ball from this tree with a baseball bat to try and give her something to do while we were setting up. And at this point, I am so hungry. So we moved this table over out of the way, and I decide I need to make a fire because that is how we have to cook all of our food, guys, is on a fire. There is no barbecue. So Lexley decided to go off and play in the forest. And at this point, I was unaware of how sticky everything is. So she went off and played in the forest and became covered in pine tar, which I had no clue how sticky pine tar is. And also, fun fact, pine tar is highly flammable. I actually used it as a way to get the fire started here in a few minutes. But at this point in this story, Lexley becomes covered in pine tar, and I have to walk the probably 15 minutes one way to a bathroom. And I tried to get it off of her with the hand soap that they have in these bathrooms, and it made it worse. The pine tar just spread even further, and me and her ended up covered from our hands to our elbows and our feet to our knees in a layer of what felt like super glue. And then all of those pine needles you saw on the ground just stuck to us. So I'm sure you can imagine how unfun that was for me in that moment. But thankfully, Trevor got a bar of soap that had like an avocado or something oil in it, and that was able to cut through the pine tar, and we were able to get all of the pine tar off, and I felt a lot better after that. Just giving a little tour of our setup now that it is all finished. At this point in the video, Trevor is off to Walmart to get those things that I talked about. Oh, I also forgot condiments. You know, super mom over here, so he had to go and get ketchup. And I'm very hungry and honestly grumpy at this point, but I have a little sit down and start to feel better. I think I was also a little grumpy because my HS was bugging me, but I made the best of it. Lexley and I decided to make a fire together. This is one of my favorite parts of camping. I really enjoy making fires. I don't know if anyone else on here has made a fire, but if you know how to, it can be quite fun. So I enjoyed this a lot. I think that was one of my favorite parts overall, was making fire and cooking our food over it. So I would say that was one of my favorite parts. As you can see, got it going. Made it big enough that we could cook on it. And honestly, my HS pretty much felt like this fire at this point in time. We then went back to the bathrooms to get the pine tar off of us, and then my husband and daughter ran around, and it made my heart happy seeing how much fun they were having. So at this point, I'm finally feeling better. I'm not sticky, and we ended up eating. We saw the falls. This is up where we're camping. It's just these little like ripply waterfall area. Then I finally went and showered, and it was glorious. I used my clean body wash and then my magic healer, which honestly saved me this whole weekend. Lexley and I hung out at the campsite and just snuggled. This is her in her PJs. This is actually the next morning. I don't have any video of the first night, nor would you want to watch it because none of us slept and we were quite grumpy because, like I said, the bed was too small. So it was just us up all night with a very not pleased toddler. Unlike in this video, she's quite happy after breakfast. I was cold, so then we had to go get the sleeping bags. The first night was honestly terrible. The second night ends up being quite good. So this night, I go in the morning and change out my bandages again. I have a rather nasty abscess right on top of my pubic bone. So I change out my Band-Aid for the day and feel quite a bit better. We then put on our bathing suits and we're going to head down to the water. My husband was able to hang out with us the first day, which is this video here, but on the second day, which is this video, it was just me and Lexley that went down to the water with my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, who were also just so happened to be camping in the same campground on that weekend. Lexley was very nervous the first day, but the second day, she, as you can see, loved it. This is Ontario, Canada, and it is quite beautiful. These are the little waterfalls The water was actually quite warm because it's shallow. It's a pretty popular spot for people to come in the summer. People like to fish. And then after that, we went back to the campsite and made another fire. And this is our dinner. Then we went over to my in-laws' campsite. They had a nice trailer. I was a little jealous. And we hung out with them for the evening so that we could relax. My mother-in-law brought a bunch of bubbles for Luxley, and she loved it. As you can see, they are so sweet to her, and we're so lucky to have them in our life. And then this is the last night, and we colored and we hung out. We read some books. That's Luxley's new bed that she had all to herself. And we had a great sleep. And then this is us the next day, tearing down the tent. You can see Luxley's in her little rain outfit because it got a little damp and rainy. So this is us taking the tent apart. After we were done taking the tent apart, we went for one last little walk through this forest trail. I didn't get any video of that because I was pretty tired at this point and ready to go home, but the walk was really nice. And I honestly, even though this was quite a bit of work, I really enjoyed it and would happily go back and do this again. Plus, I think it'll be a little easier as I get more practice learning how to camp actual camping style in a tent. I was able to manage my HS quite well through this whole adventure because I did have access to showers and a bathroom. I don't know if I'd want to go camping without showers and a bathroom. It just would have been too difficult to manage my HS without those. So I think this is about as far as real camping as I would want to go. And as you can see, we've packed up our tent and we are ready to go home. Once we got home, we had to reset everything up to a certain extent and clean it and pack it up so that it's ready to go for next time. I would give this camping trip 3 out of 5 stars, honestly, but as I think I get better and more experienced at camping, it will become more fun. As for my HS, I found there wasn't a whole lot I could do for it while I was camping, but frequent showers and frequent bandage changes were what I found to be the most helpful. And that's about it. That was our weekend camping trip. I hope you enjoyed this little snippet. Until next time, bye.